Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality, and we're so glad you're here. This is a viewer and listener-supported podcast, so we greatly appreciate your support. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, share, and subscribe to any of the social media content platforms that you're using. And then if you go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, you can make a one-time donation, or with a monthly subscription, you'll gain access to our bonus content. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome, everybody, to Spirituality Adventures. This is a non-judgmental place to explore spirituality. We're so glad that you are here, and we are interviewing Carmel Wilson.
Yay, you did it right.
Hey. And thanks for joining us on Spirituality Adventures.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. So let's jump into your story. Like tell our audience where you're from and where you grew up and all that kind of stuff.
All right. I'm Carmel, and I'm from Kansas City, born and raised. I'm the only one out of my entire family born in Kansas City. Everyone was born in California. So that's nice to be reminded by around Christmas. So I'm 34. I am a coordinated entry specialist, and I love music and I love life. Love experiencing it.
We're going to get to kind of your career and your passion for helping people who, would you say, would it be accurate to say are on the margins?
Yeah.
So, but let's first kind of dive into your backstory a little bit. Tell us a little bit about your family growing up. What kind of family did you grow up in? Was it a permissive family? Was it strict? What was your faith background? All those kind of things.
So I grew up first part of my life in a single family household with my mom and my 4 siblings. And then my stepdad came in when I was around 8, and he's been amazing ever since. It's probably like blended family. You know, I have 2 step siblings, and we didn't really grow up specifically any religious. My mom grew up Methodist, and I went to church at North Cross with my friend, and I became a part of the youth group there, and I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed being a part of a group that believed in something and that had, a purpose. And then I saw them volunteering for individuals, and that looked really interesting to me too. So then 3rd grade came around, and I wanted to learn sign language. So I did that for summer school for 3 months, and I just started helping the deaf kids in my school sign and communicate. Wow. Yeah, that was really fun. And I don't know, I think I just grew up in a non-traditional house, but my mom is very open-minded. Again, my mom's actually a Pisces, so she's very open-minded and accepting and understanding. So anytime I had questions about religion, I remember asking her, Mom, do you believe in God? Or, because we went to church, but I'd never been to church actively with my mom. Like, she always liked to search around for different churches, but living in the Northland, we never found a church that really we were comfortable at. So we would go downtown to churches down there that would be more comfortable for us. Mm-hmm.
Like when you say more comfortable, I mean, are you talking about black churches?
Yeah, like there's not a lot. Yeah, there's not a lot of African American churches up north.
There's not. There's a couple, but
yeah, there's really not a lot. I remember being a part of a church when my husband and I got married, and literally I was only African American in that church, and it was so uncomfortable and awkward. And I was like, I don't know why I feel like this here, but it was weird. And going to an African-American church to me, it's very uplifting because I grew up around a lot of white kids. Mm-hmm. So when I'm around a lot of African-Americans, it feels good to be around someone like me and experiencing things like me. And I really I try to instill that in my kids, even though they're mixed. I want them to know, you need to know your culture. You need to befriend different people of your culture. Like I can say that I have Black friends, but in high school, there weren't a lot of us there. I had like 3 maybe. And the girls were just kind of like me, so I just grew up kind of just following my own path and my own footsteps.
Yeah. Interesting. What do you remember some of the names of the Black churches that you attended?
I don't.
Okay.
I really don't. And it's weird because I went with my grandparents a lot.
Okay.
So they lived off Emmanuel Cleaver on Chestnut, and I stayed with them a lot on the weekends. So I would get my church outfits ready to go at my mom's house. And I mean, at my grandparents' funeral, everyone was like, I remember you in church all the time eating your grandma's sweets. And I was like, I did, or like singing with the choir and just hanging out. But I don't remember a lot. I think I stopped going probably 12 or 13 when I started getting into sports and, cheerleading and friends and all that. But I really enjoyed it though.
Yeah, it's interesting. I pastored this church for 28 years up here in the Northland. And I mean, it was pretty white, though we would have had some representation from the Asian, Hispanic, and Black community, right? But not, it still would have felt like a white church, even though you could have looked around and probably found a couple other Black folks, or if you're Asian, you could have found a few other, that kind of thing. But I always partnered really heavily with the African American churches and the Latino churches in our urban core. So I have a lot of relationships with the Black churches in Kansas City. Worked with them for years. And then when I went through what I went through 3 years ago, I decided, just when I started going to church again in 2019, I went to Macedonia Baptist Church, which is the largest historic Black church, I think, in Kansas City, Missouri proper. And the pastor there is a guy named John Brooks. There's actually 3 Brooks pastors that are Black in Kansas City. There's an Alvin Brooks years
Aren't they
ago.
brothers?
No.
They're not?
No, they're not brothers. There's Michael Brooks, who was one of our city councilmen. Michael's one of my very close friends. He used to pastor Mount Zion Baptist Church. Now it's called Oasis Church.
I've heard of that one.
And then John Brooks is the pastor of Macedonia Baptist Church. And when John started there, like almost 20 years ago, it was at 24th and Benton, in the core, and it was a small church, but it's grew. Now they're on just off I-7 or 71 highway on Linwood, right on Linwood and 71, and it's a great church. I've gone there for about 2.5 years now, and I'm one of the very few white people in the church.
Does that feel weird?
And well, I love it.
When you first were apart, was it like, I'm the only white person here?
So what was interesting, and before COVID, I started attending there toward the end of 2019, and then February 2020, I was attending there, and that was right before everything shut down on COVID. So if you remember, everything kind of shut down in March of 2020.
I loved it.
But I went through Black History Month, February 2020, in a Black church as like maybe 4 other white people out of 1,500 people or so, right? And I loved it, and the music, and like it was the first time I'd sung the Black National Anthem in a church, and I was in such a difficult place, and the music an hour and a half long. And I love their worship guys, their song leader's a guy named Tim. I love Tim. And it just was healing to me. Like the music and the way it talked about the struggle and bondage and all these darkness and, light and overcoming and all these themes that are so important to the Black experience in America, right? It's in their songs.
Yeah,
the struggle from slavery to freedom. It's all in the music. And and in a different way, in a spiritual way, I felt like I was kind of in bondage and needed to move into freedom. So those songs felt really, anyway, enough about me, but I
like it.
I connect with that community. And so I can see why you would have enjoyed it. And
definitely.
Felt at home. And,
felt accepted and at peace, and really, really people talk to me, and it's nice. It's very nice.
Very cool. So you were involved in music. What other things were you involved in high school?
Cheerleading, friends. I was a part of I was a cheerleader all 4 years of high school, but I had a lot of different friends. I didn't have that one specific group of friends. I was friends with a lot of different people. I mean, I think Matt could tell you, like, I was just friends with a lot of just random people, but I really loved being active and social in high school and experiencing and knowing different people in high school. Like, it's just nice.
Yeah. And Matt Cox, our awesome producer, videographer, is the connection here.
Yeah.
Too. He introduced me to you. So cool. Yeah. So out of high school, what was your path out of high school? So
I got pregnant after high school, and between that time, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I don't think any 18-year-old, 19-year-old knows what they want to do after high school. I think you're just, if you're a parent thinking that, they're not going to know. They've been in school for 12 years being told what to do and institutionalized, and now they're free to think what they want and do what they want now. And I knew that I was going to be a good mom, and that's what I wanted to do. So I devoted, my life to being a good mom and making sure that Piper and I were good and, independent and whatnot. And I think I didn't start really thinking about what I wanted to do till I was like 24. I was in the business development department at Lexus Hendrick North. And I was like, man, I don't want to help sell cars to people. I think that's pointless. I don't want to do that. Like, selling a car to a single parent, yeah, that's great. I would rather do that than sell a $50,000 car to a person who's just pouring money down the drain, using it for nothing. So I decided to go to school for medical office administration. And then I was a chiropractic assistant. And I didn't want to collect people's money. And I wanted to do more than just write down billing and coding and schedule appointments for doctors. I didn't want to do that. So I decided to get out of that into nonprofit, and that's where I found DPS, and I started helping people find jobs, helping people who had a disadvantage find jobs, and did that for 5 years.
So you said initials. You said that's where I found what?
That's where I found my initial, I like to help people.
No, and you said 3 initials, I thought.
DPS.
DPS.
Yes.
Department.
Diversity Placement Services.
Okay.
Yes. So they provide job development to people who are disabled or felons.
Okay.
And that is what I did for 5 years.
Okay.
So that was very, very fulfilling, and I really enjoyed it. Calling someone up.
I didn't even know. I wasn't even familiar with this.
Oh yeah, and
so this
addicts
is like
and everything.
State program.
It's through Vocational Rehab through the state, and I worked with felons. I worked with addicts. I worked with single parents, people who had major disabilities, people who had limited, sex offenders. People who murdered people. All kinds of individuals. And I learned not to judge everybody. Don't judge everybody. I mean, I had one bad mishap with a client, but that was it, and it really opened me up to wanting to do more for people. And then when I told my husband this, he goes, what more could you possibly be doing? And I'm like, just more. So I
say the name of this one more time.
Diversity Placement Services.
Diversity Placement Services. Mm-hmm. And this literally is helping people with
jobs.
Yeah.
Employment.
Yeah.
Permanent employment.
So either with physical or disabilities,
physical or mental,
mm-hmm. And then also just with difficult track records.
Yeah. Like barriers, mm-hmm. barriers that may have been created by yourself, or, just in general life mm-hmm. barriers, Did
you work with more men or women?
Men.
Worked with more men?
Yeah. And we also worked with juniors in high school too.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And was it fairly diverse in terms of the ethnicity of the people you were working with?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. I helped a lot of different people, there was there's just people who need help, and no one wanted to take a chance on them. And mm-hmm. when you find someone who actually wants to take a chance on you, it's like a breath of fresh air.
Right.
So,
man, that's so important. Finding people who believe in you again, even after you've screwed up.
Definitely.
I've needed that.
Hey, everybody needs it sometimes. Everybody needs it sometimes. I talked to this guy on the phone who could not believe that he was homeless. Like, he couldn't fathom the fact that he was in this position, and he was just beside himself and thought he was just so much better than that. And I said, listen, it's life. And sometimes life kicks you and you need help sometimes getting up, and then that's okay. And he was just beside himself. He could not. And I tell him that sentence every time he calls me.
Interesting. Yeah. Good for you. I love that. So cool. So, so back up just a bit, and like out of high school, you're 19, you're a mom. Are you a single mom at this point?
I'm a single mom.
And you're working, you go to school?
Yeah, I did.
Go to school, you're a single mom.
I actually went to Maple for 2 years before I even met my husband. That is when I started school. But yeah, I went to, you're right. I went to school and was single mom and worked full time.
Yeah. You're one
I think about it and I'm like, oh, I did that.
Yeah. That's, I had, when I was pastoring, I had a lot of women in that category, where they were working full time, single moms.
I had a good support group though.
Yeah. But they were some of the most amazing women I'd ever met. Seriously. And I started calling them my heroes, really, because they just were so devoted to their kids, to their family. They worked their butts off, and yet they were generous. They cared for people. They related to people who were on the margins because they were in a challenging place, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I just found that group of people in the church
were good at giving back.
They were very good. They were some of the most generous people I ever met.
That's good.
Truly. That was something generosity was something in all of its manifestations, not just with money, but just with time and your heart and love and, just helping people out, that kind of thing. Very cool. So you meet your husband.
Yep.
And what were you doing when you met him?
I was invited to actually a party he was throwing at his house, and I met him, and I think 2 weeks later, he asked me on a date. Yeah. And our first date, I didn't even know he went to high school with me. Like, he went to the same high school as I did, but I didn't know him. So I felt kind of like he remembered me, but I didn't remember him. I felt bad.
Well, you were a cheerleader.
Well, he played football, and I didn't even realize, oh.
Yeah, that's good. So, you guys, so what were some of the most difficult things you went through in that early stage of your life?
Just people not taking me seriously. That was the most annoying factor. I look so young, and when you know exactly what you want to do, no one wants to take you seriously when you're young. And I think that was just, and I was just they treated me like I was another statistic, single African-American mom. That was it. I had food stamps, but I was still working and still trying to live without those things, and I quickly noticed that the more money I tried to make, the less the state wanted to help, even though I still needed their help. You know what I mean? Like, if you get food stamps, you can't make over this amount because then we'll take them from you, things like that. And I was like, really? That's just ridiculous. But that's just how I feel like they keep you on that spectrum of needing their help. But yeah, I quickly learned that if I'm going to try and get people to take me seriously, I kind of have to be persistent and a little aggressive. And I'm not an aggressive person. So I just kind of had to be persistent.
Yeah. So that's so fascinating. It's like you have to have a lot of inner strength to keep moving forward. And
I have a really good co-parenting relationship with my oldest. her dad is really, really great at communicating with me. I mean, she's been going there for weekends since she was 1. So we're really good at working things out and communicating, even with my husband. Like all 3 of us, we work really well. Yeah.
Very cool. So you go from the DPS. Say it one more time.
DPS, Diversity Placement Services.
You go from Diversity Placement Services. You right when you started working there, it's about the same time you met your husband?
No. So what was it? Oh my, all the years are starting to like mash. Okay. So I met my husband in 2010, and that was when I was just done with my 2 years at Maple. And Piper and I had our first apartment to ourselves, and because we were living with my sister and her daughter, we had shared a place together.
Who's Piper?
My daughter,
okay.
My oldest, my baby. She's gonna be like, Mom, I'm not a baby anymore. But we had a place to ourselves, and then 2010 I met my husband, and we got married 2013. Yes, a year after we had Aubrey, and I just wanted to do something. Like, you never know. I was only like, 26? You when you're in your 20s, I don't think you know what kind of career you want. And I think that's really important to like really acknowledge, because I didn't know. I just knew that I was good at helping people and good at listening to people. That is what I was really passionate about, was like people and helping and listening. And I think that is like something that I carry with me all the time. You know, if I see somebody needing help, and I can help, I'm going to help. So I think like 2013, I was at Hendrick, and then, you know, selling cars, and didn't want to do that. So I decided to start at medical office administration. And then I started at DPS at 2015.
Okay.
Yep. And I stayed there till last July.
All right.
Yep. It was a long road.
And what did you transition into?
Transitional housing. So I work as a coordinated entry specialist. I work with Hillcrest at helping people find housing, homeless people.
Okay.
And that is so fun. That is so fun.
Yeah. So let's dive into that a little bit.
Okay.
So and this is in the Northland of Kansas City, right?
Yep. Yeah.
The particular Hillcrest that you work for, is that Clay County?
So I work for Hillcrest KC, and we are in Liberty.
Okay.
Yeah, we are in Liberty, but we help Clay and Platte County.
Okay.
Yeah.
So these are all, originally they were kind of all under
one thing. Yeah, and then they all separated.
Kind of, it's still.
Yeah, there's Hillcrest Platte and Hillcrest like KC. We call us Hillcrest KC. Okay. That's all I got.
Yeah, Hillcrest KC. And how would a homeless person even find you guys and connect with you, and, you know, all that kind of stuff?
They just like Google transitional housing, and we are probably the number one that pops up in Kansas City. And we go on a lot of lists, a lot of shelters. They go to our website. A lot of people go to our website. If you sit here and my phone's ringing, it's people just ringing, calling for assessments or calling for help or some kind of resource. And
so you've got enough feelers out to the community, either through websites, social media sites, so that you pop really fast. If somebody has a phone and they can Google you, right?
Yep.
Then you're going to pop up. But then also you're working in shelters. Like, what are some of the shelters that you have connections with in Kansas City? All of them?
Pretty much. They all call. City Union Mission, Synergy, Green Hills Women's Shelter. God, and there's not many up north. There's not. And you know that, like, I just made a goal. I started Hillcrest, and like 3 months later, I was like, you know what I need to do? I need to buy that Kmart building and turn it into a shelter or an apartment complex. And supervisor just looked at me and said, And I was like, you know what? and I'm going to do it under Hillcrest. That was just something that I was just, and then the CEO was like right behind him. And that's just because we don't have a lot of low income housing up here. We really, really don't. We need it.
There's Section 8 stuff that's sprinkled around,
Yeah. I love how you said that, sprinkled around, because it really is.
Yeah.
And no one takes it like they used to. Most of the apartments up north used to be Section 8. And even though they didn't say it, they accepted it. And now most of them don't anymore.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's very, very rare.
Interesting.
I say there's like 6.
Wow.
But Liberty has their own housing authority too. So
it's interesting. When I started the church back in 91, the church that I planted, I didn't have a core group. So I went I did the door to door thing. And I noticed I was 29, looked like I was probably 16. And, so nobody took me seriously either, even though I was white.
Yeah.
And grew up here.
Doesn't matter. You're young. No one wants to see you.
I was young, and it's I'm knocking on doors, and I noticed when I knock on all the pretty nice places, they just would pretty much shut the door on me. And I had a really low key approach, I'd introduce myself, say I was starting a new church, and then I just had some really gentle questions, so it wasn't an aggressive approach or anything, but so then I just started going to the the poorest places I could go.
Yep. And those are the people looking for the most hope.
In the 90s, it was Section 8 places. So I literally knocked on the doors in the 90s of almost all of the Section 8 places in the Northland. And they would virtually invite me into their living room instantly. Right. So when I realized that, I started taking sacks of groceries with me.
Oh.
And then I would go knock, and then people would invite me in, and I'd just basically just get to know them and offer to pray if they had any prayer. They always had a prayer request.
Oh, that's nice.
And I'd always ask if they needed groceries, and then I'd go, and so that's how I did it. I just delivered groceries and prayed with people and stuff like that. And, so the church grew, and I could show you all the places I went in the 90s, but I wouldn't know which ones are still.
Because they have different management now.
Right. And which ones aren't. And, and I don't know if there's new ones, but would you say in the homeless population, what are the statistics that are connected to addiction or mental health issues?
I think it's more mental health, if anything.
Okay.
I think a lot of them are struggling because if you aren't medicated, if you have a disability, let's say it's bipolar, let's say it's manic depression, bipolar, and schizophrenic. Let's say that you have to medicate those.
Yeah,
you have to. And if you don't, things are going to turn inside out so fast. Yeah. And the more I assess more people who are disabled than anything. I don't get a lot of felons. I get addicts, but most of those addicts have a disability, and they have been either abusing their medication or not using their medication correctly, or drinking on their medication, or doing things that, will alter their mind so much that they are going to have an even worse disability after.
Right.
So, and we get I have a list of 30, 60-day programs, and I am quick to just shoot those out, get an email, shoot those out. And
rehab programs.
Yeah.
I was in.
Yes. Rehab programs. Yes.
Yeah.
I just call it 30-60. My supervisor was like, what's 30-60? And I was like, oh, the program.
I was sent away for 120 days.
Hey, man. You look good, though. You look good.
At any rate. I can't say I was happy about it, but nonetheless, I certainly needed to detox off the Xanax and alcohol for sure. And even as a person who was in shape and highly successful and all of that stuff, it still took me down.
Yeah.
Right. So we like to say that, and that for me, I didn't have a corresponding, the only thing I would have been diagnosed with prior to that would have been insomnia. And probably that was caused by just like a general anxiety disorder, but that wasn't ever diagnosed. The main way that manifested was insomnia.
Yeah.
And so way into my 50s was when I finally got tired of not sleeping. And then I tried to start, anyway, long story there. But the point being is that these like mental health issues, like what you just named, and then the corresponding ways that people either medicate or self-medicate, it's no respecter of persons. It's not a rich or poor thing. It's not, a black or white thing. It's
a care about it thing. Like people need to care about it to help.
Yeah.
And we had all these like mental health facilities here and now they're all gone and they just let those people out to fend for themselves. And then there's waiting lists and waiting lists and waiting lists. And they're like, I don't know what to do because I'm on the waiting list, but I don't know what to do from there. It's a very like, what do they do? And they need someone to point them.
And insurances are starting to cover these things, but
Limited.
The problem is so many times, like how many of your clients actually have insurance?
Oh, none. Yeah.
Right?
Or if they do, it's because they have SSDI and they have to have insurance because you have SSDI.
Okay.
So,
yeah. So somebody calls and you do a total intake evaluation.
I do an assessment and that's normally like 30 to 40 minutes. I learn about them. I learn like their social, private discussions, what they don't want, what they do want, if they need someone to live with them, just basic things that you need to know to help somebody. And I also refer them to Vocational Rehab so they can get a job and get a social security card and an ID. Because I notice a lot of people don't have an ID or social security card that are homeless. And to get your social security card, you have to mail in your ID. And that is a very frustrating thing because I am one of those individuals because I lost mine and I'm like, but I don't want to send my license because then I can't drive. Or like go anywhere. So it's that they're dealing with a lot. And I think it's very frustrating when you tell someone they need to go get a job. They're homeless. They need a job. But how are they supposed to get an ID that costs $30, that they need a birth certificate, a place of an address, and their social security card? Like, how are they supposed to do that when they have no money? They should probably give them out for free or something.
And how do you vote?
Exactly. They can't even vote.
Yeah.
Their vote counts too, and
Right.
they can't vote. They can't vote about the things that we're discussing about them. They can't do it.
Yeah.
So
would you say that what percentage of the people that come to you are single? What percentage are married? What percentage have children?
I would say 50% are single people.
Okay.
A lot.
Mostly men or women? Both, I'm sure, but
it's weird because when you're single and you're homeless, you could be fleeing from domestic violence.
as a woman.
Yeah.
Typically a woman.
But I had a few men who have like flee domestic violence. One was like it was kind of like a really traumatic story, and he had just got out of the hospital. She had someone jump him and she was very abusive and she was looking for him. I mean, it was like I got to get you in a hotel, and I had to get like supervision to get him in a hotel. Yeah. But I mean, it's more of like single women fleeing from domestic violence, or men who are felons who can't get jobs, who are in the halfway house or in City Union Mission. I've been getting a lot of calls from City Union Mission, but or children. Like, it's rare if they're homeless and they have children, but that is like, get you out of that position, because I don't want you sleeping in that car with those babies. Right. Like, that is something.
That's
a thing.
You have single moms sleeping in cars, literally.
Yeah, that's a thing. And it's unsafe and it's sad, and it makes me think about me and my kids. Like, and I looked at my husband, he goes, I don't care if we were divorced. No, absolutely not. And I'm like, and then I asked the woman, why aren't they with their dads? And like, they're fleeing DV. So it's like, would you rather live under a roof getting beat on every day or sleep in a car with your kids? I would choose the car with the kids any day. But they're running for their lives. They're trying to figure something out. So,
yeah. Do you ever get calls? Because, there is a teenage homeless.
Oh yeah. Issue. No, we take care of the youth as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you got a teenager who just is typically in an abusive home, and they get out of there and now they're homeless, right? Mm-hmm. And they're so vulnerable.
Oh, right? So vulnerable. It's so sad to see. I was literally like 16-year-olds, like homeless. Like that's insane to me. But there's programs out there too. There's Job Corps. We have a youth program at Hillcrest and KCK. If you're under 18, they keep you for a year, or they keep you until you're 18. There are youth programs out there. They're not well known at all.
Doesn't Synergy have a teenage home?
They do. They have a youth program too. They do. They're a little strict, but I think they're really good. I just think that parents have got to start caring about their kids. I mean, for real, this is like, if you're a single parent and it's hard, I get it, but don't kick them out. They are going through crap on their own. I almost said the other word, but
that's all right.
They are going through stuff on their own. You don't need to make it worse by just harping on them or like being crazy to them. It's insane.
Yeah. Wow. Mm-hmm. Do you find, like in terms of like what's your age? Is the age range literally from teenagers all the way to older adults? Age range?
The oldest adult I've got was 68 years old. Wow. And I tell you, no, I lied. I'm sorry. She was 62. But this was a person that was like, she came in after my dad passed, and it was like my first week back to work, and she was about to get evicted. And I was like, oh my God, I got to help this person because I can't let her just go home and be evicted. So I searched and I worked hard, and I got her rent paid for 7 months.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, that was my 3 week. I was working on that for so long. And then I was really happy that happened. But that was I got to do something about this, because that woman was the same age as my dad. And I was like, God, this can't do this.
Yeah. And then do you find, does it seem like is there more white, black, Latino? Is there any kind of mixed, or is it just all over the map that way too?
It's really all over the map. I see more of domestic violence and addiction right now. It's those two I'm seeing a lot of. So much of. I just spoke with a lady who was getting like a lot of money in SSDI, and I said, why aren't you renting somewhere? And it's her disability that's keeping her from doing that paperwork and filling things out and budgeting and managing her money. Like, we can give someone SSDI, but will they be able to budget and manage? Maybe not. She shouldn't be homeless if she's getting, over $1,000 a month in disability. Like, so it's a lot. Like, no one's helping anybody. And you got to find people to really devote to help.
Yeah. So you guys not only place them into transitional housing, what's your longest amount of time that people usually stay in your housing? Because your stuff is pretty nice, right? And people, if I understand right, do they get if they get into let's say they get into one of your apartments, do they have a little bit of freedom on the furniture? They have a little bit of, no, they just get what you.
So, but it's all really nice furniture. It's like looks new. Yeah. I mean, they come in.
So it's like a furnished apartment.
Yeah, it's a furnished apartment. They don't even need to buy food because there's food there. There's pantry there. There's things that they need: tampons, deodorant, toothpaste. Activities that they do as groups there. They help with budgeting. So transition is 3 months, and then typically I tell everyone who's in transitional to sign up with rapid rehousing, because that is my part. I assess them for rapid rehousing, and rapid rehousing is 3 months paid rent. And that is when you get out of transitional, you get accepted to rapid rehousing, you look for your apartment, the case manager approves the apartment, and we pay 3 months rent of the apartment. In our youth side, she covers a year, because, you know, like you're a youth and you need help. You need longer than 3 months. You know, when you're an adult, you're expected to get your life together in 90 days. Yeah. I don't know how, but I'm managing. But after they are out of the transitional youth program or any of our programs, we always like to make sure that they're going to be okay and that they can come back to us whenever they want. Yeah. We're not a one and done kind of situation.
Right. It's interesting, you know, in the evangelical community, which I grew up in and was a pastor of, you know, pro-life was a big issue, right? Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me that if there's a safety net for young women mm-hmm. who find themselves pregnant mm-hmm. in maybe less than ideal circumstances, mm-hmm. There's a, you know, just providing a safety net. Mm-hmm. And we've never been great at this, right? As a community.
I don't think.
Yeah. And this is a different issue than the homeless issue, right?
Yeah.
But to me, it's like we're providing, what you're doing is providing a safety net. Mm-hmm. And you're, for some of our most vulnerable people, our homeless population, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
I think that same concept applied to multiple types of vulnerable people. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Man, I have such a passion for that stuff.
They also have a choice. I mean, you know, you have a choice if you want to get out. Like if you have your identification, if you have your social security card and identification and you have a PO box for your address, what is stopping you from going and doing that job application? Mm-hmm. Like, and you said the homeless population with the teens, mm-hmm. I'm seeing a lot of young pregnant girls, and mm-hmm. it is very frustrating because I was a huge advocate for Planned Parenthood. They gave out contraceptives. They gave out free contraceptives. Mm-hmm. Those girls used it. I used the contraceptives. And now that they shut down the Planned Parenthood, no one is giving these girls any contraceptives. No one's teaching them. No one's showing them, hey, you can say no. Hey, you can get up and leave. Hey, you don't have to be in that situation. Mm-hmm. No one is doing that at all. So when we meet these girls, I literally tell them, you have a choice. You can get out of that situation. He may be with you now, but it's because you're trying to get an apartment and he doesn't want to be homeless either. Mm-hmm. So come on, let's get our big girl panties on and get it done. But I think that you need, like, the homeless population and the youth need to know that they have options and they are young and they are willing. If they are willing, they are able.
Right. And just knowing that there are resources to help you navigate mm-hmm. your future that's scary.
Yes.
Is a huge deal.
Yeah, because they didn't have any help in the beginning. Right. The person who was supposed to help them just left them.
So people make better decisions about anything mm-hmm. if they feel like there's a little bit of hope in their future and they have a few people around them that are advocating for them. Like mm-hmm. you said, like
pushing for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I can honestly say, I don't think that I would be as successful as I am now if I did not have like my mom saying, you can do this. My dad say, you can do this. Piper's dad helping every weekend. My husband giving me courage. You know, life is hard and mm-hmm. It throws things at you. And I think to have support beyond like a certain boundary is a good thing. Mm-hmm. To have full 100% support no matter what is a big thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Well, I love the work you're doing. And so you get them into what's called rapid housing. Mm-hmm. So you go from transitional housing to rapid housing to mm-hmm. then is it then at that point you're also helping with jobs and stuff, and the goal is to kind of be fully integrated?
So I don't help with jobs anymore, but I do send out the occasional application. Like I really do. It's pretty bad. I did just send someone a FedEx application because I knew that they were hiring, and I'm still kind of intertwined with FedEx because I got a lot of people hired there. Okay. So I called the HR person. They're like, oh yeah, we're totally hiring. Send them over. And I'm like, okay, great. So I do that a lot. And my supervisor definitely hears me do it. But they're really like, okay, you did that part of your job, so great. Okay, now you can do something extra for them as long as you do your main part. And I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah. That's cool. What's your job title again?
Coordinated entry specialist.
Okay. Coordinated entry specialist. Right. Well, I love that. How can people connect? Like, do you guys work with volunteers? If people wanted to help out, what are some of the volunteer roles that are needed around this work that you do with the homeless?
That's a really good question because we have so many. So we have volunteers at all the transitional homes, and we actually just started our program assistant is now starting to get volunteers in our office. We get a lot of people who donate food and clothes, and when they donate them to our office specifically, we give them out to anybody who comes by. All they have to do is go on our website and volunteer, and the volunteer coordinator will get a hold of them. But it's a really fun place. We have thrift stores that we need help at too. And, most of our company is made up of volunteers, and we love that because we really appreciate them.
So where would they connect? What's the website, or how would they connect?
hillcrestkc.org.
Okay. hillcrestkc.org. I'm guessing there's a landing page there, and then there's the page, then you click on volunteer tab, and it'll have you either fill out a volunteer application or a phone number. We just hired someone to handle like all the volunteering for the whole company, so give her a minute. If you want to volunteer, just give her like a quick minute. Okay. Very cool. What would you want people to know about the work that you do? Like, if you could just have a minute to like give a quick plug for what you're doing, what would why should people care about this?
Because everybody deserves somewhere to live. It's a basic human right to live under a roof. You should not, just because you're born doesn't mean you have to live on the street. I think it's important to know that other countries don't really. What did I learn in like Ethiopia? They don't even pay rent. They don't have a mortgage. They don't do that there. Like, they just have a home. And I
was just there in October, and the numbers of women with little babies breastfeeding that literally are sleeping on the sidewalk
is ridiculous.
It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. Yeah. And I think that we just need to start caring more about those individuals who need help. Like, we really, really do. I think it's important. The people who are doing this for a living, like me, be patient with us, but also be nice and know that we're helping other individuals while keeping our sanity as well. Like, it's hard hearing those stories every day and then going home to my lovely family and dealing what I'm dealing with. But at the same time, you have to understand that we're helping a lot of people in a short amount of time. And people who, like, landlords aren't the nicest people right now. They are not. And if you are not making an income, they do not want to rent to you at all. And I think that's important to know. Like, landlords, well, stop hiking your prices and maybe you would find a good renter. But it is. It is. I just talked to like 3 of them last week. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah. Everything's jacking up right now.
It's frustrating because I'm so cheap. I don't like to spend money on things that I like. $3.69 for gas is stupid. Like, I was like, I Googled your house from mine. And I was like, okay, it's 15 minutes, but like, how can I save the gas? And then I was like, well, if he was closer, I'd like jog or something. Like, but I'm thankful that I can work from home when I need to work from home. But at the same time, at Diversity, I drove 500 miles a month for work alone. Yeah. That was it. So
what I'm curious, in the last couple of years with the pandemic and everything, did that change anything about what you do? Like the pandemic?
So
did it make it harder? Did it make it to where there were more people? Did you have more needs and less resources?
So when it started in February, this is interesting that you asked that, because I was actually working 2 jobs. And when it started, I was like, man, they're sending me home to work for a whole month. I'm so excited. Like, I can spend time with my family, because I was working so much that I felt like I wasn't spending time with my family. So I quit the job at KCI Airport and I just started just focusing on diversity. And I noticed that a lot of people did not want to get out and work because of this pandemic. But I did notice that a lot of people were changing the way they were thinking about working and about, like, are we living to work? Or are we working to live? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. And I did a lot of soul searching myself. I did a lot of rethinking about how I wanted my life to be and what kind of person I am. And I think I've grown immensely these past 2 years within this pandemic. And I think I learned a lot about myself. And I think that people have almost kind of given up on doing things, how can I say this nicely? That the government thinks that they should be doing, like working to live in a place to pay expensive housing, or, some people think that they should get free food because that's a basic necessity. You have to live to eat. Like, those are things. And I think that a lot of people are starting to think like that. Like, I want to live in a smaller place. I want to live easy. I don't want to work as hard. I don't want to work that 60-hour week. I want to work 30 hours a week and enjoy my life. I think a lot of people are thinking like that. And I think that people who were already struggling are going to find a harder time getting back on their feet if they're not willing to make the effort. Because I see a lot of that enablism in my job. I see, well, aren't you going to look for the apartment for me? Are you going to do the paper? No. Oh, no, honey. No, you're going to do it and I'm going to pay for it. But I see a lot of that enablism, and a lot of case managers were already doing that before, but now they're having to like carry them into apartments and looking and carry them into jobs. Like, I was one of the people who were enabling them. Like, I was doing people's applications for them just to get them on faster. But I didn't teach them anything. And they would argue with me when I made them do it. And I'm like, but you have to do something to get this. You have to do something.
Right. So it's almost like because the government was actually trying to help more people. They ended up helping people that didn't need help. And now those people are relying on that help already.
I see. Yeah. I mean, they should have already... I loved the stimulus checks. I loved them. I found no problem with them. We bought our house and I was like, all right, great. I'm gonna save these and buy a house. That's what we did. But I mean, a lot of people were using them to they weren't paying rent and they were using them very irresponsibly. And I noticed that, like, if they were homeless and they got a stimulus check, they didn't do much with it, you know? And I mean, $1,200 to a homeless person is like, oh my God, I can go sleep at a hotel maybe, or do whatever I want to do with my money, you know? I mean, I even, like, before my dad passed, I was trying to get him his stimulus checks because he didn't get any of them. And I thought it was like the weirdest thing to me. But it was just, I think that we were already helping homeless people before the pandemic, but I think a lot of people helping them were very burnt out. Because I know I was one of those people. I was very burnt out and really needing a break from, helping others, and I needed to help myself. And I think that the people now who are done focusing on helping themselves and ready to hop back in, now the homeless population is like, what do we do? Because now there are people who are wanting to work less and focus more on themselves and not so much as homeless individuals. So if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, I love the work that you guys are doing. It's something that I've always had a heart to support and have always encouraged people to network and jump in and volunteer and all that kind of stuff. So thank you for all of that work that you've been part of. And I'm just to kind of maybe a closing thought. For some of us in the faith tradition, like I still call myself a Jesus follower. And a part of the thing that I love about Jesus is that he had a heart for the outcast and the marginalized and the sick and the disadvantaged and the outsider. I mean, he intentionally went. That was his ministry, basically, was with that crowd. And, with sort of the super religious, self-righteous power crowd group, he didn't get along with that group so much, So, and I think that as, for those out there who would consider themselves as Jesus followers, you're giving some way in some form or some fashion, whether it's money, food, clothing, volunteer time, whatever, to some of these more vulnerable populations, I think is very, I think it's a part of so many faith traditions, not just Christian faith tradition, but so many. I just think it's an important role that we have to play.
I think it's important. I think, you're right. Everybody has got to help everybody. I think it's hard to get up on your feet by yourself. You can't tell me that someone didn't help. Someone didn't give you some kind of inspiring words or some kind of, oh, really? I'm going to wake up tomorrow and it's going to be a good day. No matter what, I'm going to have a good day, And I think that if it's important to know that, be a little empathetic. Have a little empathy for people. It's okay. Yeah. It's not going to make you, grow weird hair or a pimple.
Right.
It's going to be okay.
And don't always have to be so judgmental and try to figure out all, well, they wouldn't be there. So
all judgmental.
All those judgy things.
Yes.
Like,
I hate
hey,
it.
they're there,
Yeah.
And, man, and I could have been judged for all that I've done. I'm sure I was by some, but I'm so thankful for those who kind of just loved me anyways and reached out and showed that love. So we all need that.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Carmel Wilson, and encourage everybody, if you want to check out hillcrestkc.org, we will and we'll be happy. I know they will be happy to have the volunteer resources that go there. So thanks. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everybody for listening in. We'll see. This concludes today's episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Remember, if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Remember to like, share, or subscribe to the social media platform that you're using. And then go to our website, spiritualityadventures.com, and make a one-time donation, or you can subscribe monthly and receive our special bonus content. Thanks so much.